They say time heals all wounds, but whoever said that clearly never met Brian Blair in the Iron Sheik. This wasn't some playful locker room rib or backstage story cooked up for laughs. This was two real guys who flat out hated each other for decades. Blair's the kind of guy who will shake your hand and smile for the crowd, but if you cross him, he'll quietly twist your arm until you tap. Literally, in Sheik's case. Their beef wasn't born from jealousy, it came from a night in Hershey, Pennsylvania, where a wrestling match turned into a real fight. From that moment, Sheik carried a grudge like it was an Olympic medal. And just when you think it cooled down years later, Sheik slapped Blair at a roast right in front of a room full of people. But Sheik wasn't the only one who found himself at odds with Blair. There were others who felt the quiet Florida charm turn into fury, from backstage fights to busted promises. Tonight, we'll dig into all of it, from the locker room punches to the microphone shots. This isn't locker room gossip. It's one of wrestling's longest, most bitter shoot rivalries. And tonight, we're diving into every inch of it. Before there was paint, wigs, and rubber hammers, Matt Borne was a guy you didn't screw with. And Brian Blair found that out the hard way. This wasn't one of those boys will be boys backstage scuffles. This was a legit brawl, the kind where the boys stop joking and start clearing the hallway. According to multiple shoot interviews, Blair and Borne went from jawing to trading real punches, and it wasn't a friendly spar. Even Blair described it years later as brutal. No one can even agree on what sparked it. Some say it was over a rib gone wrong, others that Borne's temper just hit boiling point. Either way, when it kicked off, everyone got the hell out of the way. Borne was known for being a heavy hitter, both in and out of the ring, but Blair wasn't exactly a pushover. Florida kid, amateur wrestling background, freak grip strength, not a guy you rough up for long. Witnesses say the scuffle was loud enough that other wrestlers paused their own prep, peeking out of locker rooms, wondering who would be carried out first. The air smelled of sweat, adrenaline, and bad decisions, exactly the combination that makes locker room stories legendary. The fight became part of wrestling lore. Some say Borne won, others say Blair choked him out. The truth's probably somewhere in the middle, but it doesn't matter. What mattered was respect. After that night, Borne never tried him again. For Blair, it was another day surviving the business. For everyone else watching, it was proof that the smiling killer bee wasn't someone you wanted to sting first. And if you ever wondered whether Blair's calm demeanor was all for show, that hallway fight erased every doubt. Brian Blair's second real backstage heat wasn't a fist fight, but it stung just as bad, and it involved Jim Brunzell, his partner in the Killer Bees. On paper, they were perfect, athletic, charismatic, and with a gimmick that made fans cheer. In reality, the tag team world was a jungle, and sometimes even your best friend could be your source of frustration. Blair has openly discussed how management promises caused tension. The pair were repeatedly teased with tag team championship runs, only to be sidelined at the last minute. For a team that worked tirelessly, traveling nonstop, and putting their bodies on the line, this wasn't just disappointment, it was real backstage heat. Blair admitted the frustration sometimes boiled over into disagreements with Brunzell, even though they both shared the same goal. Part of the tension came from navigating the office politics. Brunzell had his own baggage. Prior legal entanglements over merchandise, action figures, and disputes with other promoters meant he arrived with heat on his back. Blair, fresh into the scene, found himself caught in the middle, sometimes defending his partner, sometimes frustrated by the limelight being so inconsistently handed out. Sources confirm Blair and Brunzell weren't enemies, but the stress of unkept promises and backstage politics created moments of real tension. Their relationship was professional, but moments of frustration, slammed doors, terse words, and cold shoulders left a mark. Blair has admitted that he and Brunzell often had to separate personal feelings from the business to survive. In the end, the Killer Bees thrived despite it, but the lessons lingered. Even in a tag team, backstage heat could fester, and sometimes the hardest battles weren't in the ring, but in negotiating respect, recognition, and creative fairness. For Blair, this was a backstage schooling in patience, resilience, and knowing exactly when to speak up and when to zip it. Before we dive into the Sheik saga, hit that like button. Don't make Blair have to sting your channel for attention. Subscribe, ring the bell, and stay in the hive, because the next 3 segments are where the real venom flows. Don't miss it. Brian Blair walked into Hershey, Pennsylvania, ready to work a match. The Sheik walked in ready to humiliate someone. And guess who got the honor? Yeah, Blair. Sheik tried an ankle pick that hit harder than a cement truck on payday. Blair didn't flinch. He snapped on a double wrist lock so fast it was like watching a spider choke a fly. Sheik tapped. That's right, the legendary Iron Sheik, tapping like a scared kid at detention. Humiliation? Served cold. Backstage, the smell of Sheik's pride burning could have powered a small city. Blair said it straight. This wasn't a work. Sheik's ego was shattered, and everyone in the locker room knew it. Even the referees walked on eggshells. One wrong word and it could have escalated into a full-on cage fight. Other wrestlers whispered. Some laughed. Some prayed. Blair? He just cleaned up the mess and acted like it was another Tuesday. The Sheik, meanwhile, nursed a grudge that lasted decades. Every time he saw Blair, it was like his brain flashed that double wrist lock in Hershey, and he wanted revenge. Blair survived the match, kept his dignity, and earned a backstage reputation. Don't test the Killer Bee. He was calm, calculated, and quietly lethal. And Sheik learned the hard way that smiling in the ring doesn't mean you're harmless. Sometimes it means you're the last person you want to piss off. If Hershey was a test of skill, the roast was a test of ego, and Sheik failed spectacularly. Years after their Hershey clash, Blair and the Sheik ended up at a roast. One would think this was all laughs, jokes, and polite applause. Nope. Sheik, still simmering from that infamous wrist lock, decided to make his point. With a slap, right across Blair's face. Public humiliation? Check. Backstage venom? Double check. Blair has confirmed in interviews. It wasn't a work. Sheik slapped him for real, and the room froze. You could hear crickets thinking twice about ever crossing either man. Blair, of course, didn't respond with violence. He didn't need to. The slap was more embarrassing for Sheik than anyone else. Watching a legend reduce himself to a red-faced, flailing man-child was entertainment enough. Backstage, the story spread like wildfire. Everyone knew Sheik was still carrying Hershey in his ego like a personal grudge suitcase. But Blair? He smiled, shrugged, and kept going. That's Blair in a nutshell. Calm on the surface, lethal underneath. The slap didn't break him. It just cemented his reputation. He survives anything, and he remembers everything. Some wrestlers reportedly warned newcomers, if you ever see Blair and Sheik together, keep your distance. The air between them could choke you, and Blair's take? Purely savage. He slapped me in front of a room full of people, and I let him look like an idiot. That's talent. The roast slap wasn't just a moment, and it was proof. Blair could handle the in-ring shoot, the backstage politics, and the public humiliation. Sheik's ego, on the other hand, couldn't handle a wrist lock or punchline. Decades of whispers, rumors, and locker room tall tales finally met the truth. Brian Blair didn't just survive the Iron Sheik, he dismantled him. This wasn't a scripted punch, a friendly rib, or a backstage joke. It was pure, unfiltered chaos. And Sheik? He got humiliated. Repeatedly. Hershey, Pennsylvania. Sheik shoots on Blair. Blair snaps a double wrist lock. Sheik taps. Ego destroyed. Fast forward years later. The roast slap. Public humiliation. Front of a room full of people. Blair didn't flinch. He didn't need to. Watching Sheik flail like a baby in a wrestling costume was entertainment enough. That slap wasn't a work. He really did it. I didn't blink. Blair confirms and shoots. Blair breaks it down. Wrestling isn't brute strength. It's patience, brains, and timing. You can rage, you can slap, you can scream, but if you cross him, he'll sting, disappear, and make sure the entire locker room watches you eat dirt. That's how the Killer Bee operates. The lesson? Ego doesn't beat skill. Pride doesn't beat patience. And the Sheik? He's remembered for getting played by a guy who smiles like a friendly bee while stinging like a motherfucker. Blair's final words, sharp enough to sting anyone repeating the myth. I didn't start it, I just finished it, politely, and he never lived it down. Decades later, the story remains the same. Blair walked in calm, walked out respected, and left Sheik's ego in ashes. That's the real history. That's the Killer Bee. So that's the story. Blair took punches, wrist locks, and slaps, and came out buzzing while the Sheik's ego smoldered in the corner. From Matt Borne to Jim Brunzell, and finally the Sheik's public humiliation, Blair's locker room resume reads like a checklist of survival and quiet domination. He doesn't brag. He doesn't need to. Every grudge, every tension, every slap, filed under lesson learned. And if you think the Killer Bee's sting is done, think again. It's still sharp, still deadly, and still leaves egos in ashes. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't just buzz off. Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Stick around for more backstage heat, real shoot stories, and the kind of savage honesty only wrestling's grittiest vets can deliver. Thanks for watching.